In a surprising turn of events, the Ford CEO announced his resignation on live television just hours after Chevrolet revealed their new 2.7-liter turbocharged engine. The announcement left industry experts stunned as Chevy's innovative engine drew immediate praise, highlighting its power and efficiency. Social media erupted with reactions, with hashtags like #Chevy wins and #Ford resigns trending nationwide. As Chevy celebrated their engineering breakthrough, Ford faced a crisis of leadership and strategy. The contrast between the two events couldn't have been more striking, one marked by innovation, the other by uncertainty. Now, how did one engine spark such chaos? What exactly made Chevy's engine so revolutionary? Why did it lead to Ford's CEO stepping down? Stay tuned as we break down the details and explore how this shakeup could impact the future of American trucks. Why the chief executive couldn't take it anymore. To understand what led to this emotional breakdown, we need to rewind just 48 hours. An internal memo had leaked, warning Ford executives of a potentially irreversible market share decline. The content was grim: weak first-quarter sales, a sharp drop in consumer confidence, and a looming threat of mass layoffs at the Dearborn plant. At the heart of this crisis was a new tariff on aluminum and steel, reintroduced by President Trump as part of his renewed America First agenda. The memo revealed heated discussions within Ford's boardroom. Should they continue with the EcoBoost lineup or take the risky path of fast-tracking an incomplete inline-six engine? The pressure mounted. The acting chairman feared that their mid-sized truck would become obsolete. Meanwhile, across the border, Prime Minister Mark Carney had just announced a new round of subsidies for mid-size electric vehicles, increasing the strain on Ford's strategy. Personal stakes only heightened the tension. The chief executive came from a family deeply tied to Ford's legacy. His grandfather had worked at the Rouge complex for nearly 4 decades. Expectations weighed heavily on his shoulders. Then came the news that Chevrolet was set to reveal a game-changing engine. Advisors suggested postponing Ford's announcement, but the chief executive insisted on facing the public directly. As he spoke, his phone vibrated with messages. Chevrolet had just unveiled a turbocharged 4-cylinder that matched the torque of Ford's V6. His voice faltered as the realization hit. Ford had been blindsided. The engine that broke Ford. Chevrolet's new 2.7-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder was not just another engine. It was the result of 5 years of innovation, designed from the ground up to challenge traditional norms. At its core was a forged bottom end and a dual-volute turbocharger, a unique configuration that separated exhaust pulses to reduce lag. This design allowed the engine to spool faster, generating immediate torque. Chevrolet engineers called it the sledgehammer blowdown effect, likening the force to a pair of synchronized hammers driving the turbo at every pulse. This engine wasn't just a technological marvel, it was a strategic masterstroke. Chevrolet launched it at a time when Ford was already struggling to compete in the mid-size truck market. The high-output variant of the engine delivered 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque, numbers Ford's inline-six couldn't match. To make matters worse, Chevrolet offered the engine as a standard option on all Colorado trims, removing any premium that Ford had planned to charge for its upgraded Ranger engine. The most shocking revelation came when Chevrolet revealed their torture testing. They ran the engine non-stop at peak torque and horsepower for days on end. The cooling system, driven by a brushless electric water pump, maintained optimal temperature even when the turbo reached glowing red heat. The engine's durability was undeniable, proving it could endure long hauls and heavy towing without breaking a sweat. In contrast, Ford's prototype inline-six struggled to maintain power during heat endurance tests, often slipping into limp mode. This was more than just an engineering victory for Chevrolet. It was a direct challenge to Ford's long-standing dominance in the midsize segment. As the numbers poured in from media and consumer reports, the verdict was clear. Chevrolet had struck a devastating blow. See, we dug deep into the details of Chevy's game-changing engine to show you why it's shaking up the industry. Now you've got the inside scoop. All we ask in return is a quick like and subscribe to keep up with more exclusive insights. Ford's immediate crisis. Panic set in as Ford's leadership scrambled to develop a response plan. At midnight, the board convened an emergency meeting, dialing in investors from around the globe. In Singapore, where it was already morning, Financial analysts watched as Ford's stock fell 8% within hours, a single-day loss not seen since the financial crisis of 2008. Plant managers across the Midwest received vague instructions to maintain morale while the company assessed its next steps. The gravity of the situation was not lost on President Trump, who addressed the issue in a press conference. He reiterated his commitment to American-made engines, but hinted that Ford needed to build stronger or risk being left behind. Mark Carney, on the other hand, saw this as an opportunity. Canada's auto industry, benefiting from new green energy policies, was poised to capitalize on Ford's potential downturn. As Ford's leadership deliberated, the anxiety among workers grew. Social media was flooded with videos from Kansas City's assembly line, where workers speculated about their jobs. Some even posted heartfelt messages pleading for answers, unsure whether their futures were secure. The union hotline was overwhelmed with calls, and local representatives were left with few answers. The company had a few options: expedite the hybrid Ranger program, seek a partnership with a South Korean battery supplier, or attempt a radical redesign of their current engines. None of the choices were risk-free. In a last-ditch effort, Ford's marketing team launched a campaign emphasizing tradition and legacy. The message was simple: Ford trucks had endured for decades, and they would endure again. But the public wasn't convinced. As word spread of Chevrolet's triumph, many questioned whether Ford was clinging to nostalgia rather than embracing innovation. In the weeks that followed, focus groups revealed a disturbing trend. Brand loyalty was wavering. Consumers wanted innovation, not just heritage. Ford was faced with a brutal reality: evolve or become obsolete. The immediate crisis had shaken Ford to its core, but Chevrolet's ascent was just beginning. The real question wasn't just how Ford would respond, but how Chevrolet planned to solidify its newfound dominance. As Ford scrambled for solutions, Chevrolet was already planning its next move, expanding the 2.7 liters reach into other models and markets. To understand how Chevy's victory might shape the future of the automotive industry, we need to look beyond just the engine. We need to understand the strategy behind it. Chevrolet's calculated masterstroke. As Ford's leadership scrambled to mitigate the fallout from their unexpected crisis, Chevrolet was already executing the next phase of its strategy. Unlike Ford, which seemed caught off guard by the sudden market shift, Chevrolet had meticulously planned every detail. It wasn't just about building a better engine. It was about reshaping the narrative around mid-sized trucks. Chevrolet's research and development team had predicted a growing consumer demand for more power without sacrificing efficiency. With President Trump reinstating tariffs on imported automotive parts, there was a clear need to develop powertrains that could withstand the increased production costs without pricing out the average consumer. That's where the 2.7-liter turbocharged engine came in, a durable, reliable powerhouse designed to minimize maintenance while maximizing torque. The engine's design was an intentional departure from the norm. Instead of relying on a 6-cylinder configuration, Chevrolet bet on a high-output 4-cylinder that matched the performance of traditional V6 engines while offering better fuel efficiency. By optimizing the turbocharger to deliver immediate torque through the dual volute system, Chevrolet created a truck that could handle demanding tasks without the sluggish acceleration typically associated with turbo lag. But the engine was just one part of the plan. Chevrolet's real genius lay in how they marketed it. By emphasizing durability and everyday usability, they targeted not just traditional truck enthusiasts, but also those considering switching from larger, less fuel-efficient models. Their promotional videos showcased real-world scenarios, hauling heavy loads up steep inclines, towing boats without a hitch, and performing seamlessly in rugged environments. Consumers were drawn to the promise of power and practicality. Ford's miscalculation and panic. Back at Ford headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. Executives knew they couldn't counter Chevrolet's engine immediately, and their attempts to downplay the competition were met with skepticism. Internally, they had underestimated the appeal of a 4-cylinder powerhouse. The last time Ford had experimented with a 4-cylinder turbo in a mid-sized truck, consumer response had been tepid at best. They assumed the same would be true for Chevrolet, but they failed to account for one crucial difference. Chevrolet's engine was not just powerful, it was versatile. While Ford's mid-size lineup struggled to balance power and fuel efficiency, Chevrolet offered both. The 2.7-liter engine was configurable for various outputs, allowing consumers to choose between maximum power or enhanced fuel economy. This flexibility made the engine appealing to a broader audience. Ford's immediate response was to push forward with its Hybrid Ranger project. Yet, as details of the project surfaced, it became evident that it was nowhere near completion. Engineers were still grappling with the weight distribution issues caused by the hybrid's battery pack, which affected handling and payload capacity. Ford's plan to rush a prototype to market seemed increasingly risky. The marketing department faced equal challenges. Their traditional messaging, touting legacy and reliability, fell flat against Chevrolet's dynamic, innovation-driven campaign. Ford's attempts to evoke nostalgia were met with criticism from younger consumers, who felt the company was stuck in the past. Social media polls showed a dramatic shift, with once loyal Ford fans expressing interest in switching to Chevrolet. The Chevy effect, consumer response. News outlets soon began reporting on the consumer reaction, dubbing it the Chevy effect. Dealerships saw increased foot traffic, with buyers specifically asking for the turbocharged Colorado. Some dealerships even reported running out of stock, a scenario that forced Chevrolet to accelerate production. In contrast, Ford dealerships struggled to maintain customer interest, resorting to discounts and incentives to move older models. Chevrolet capitalized on the momentum by launching a digital campaign called Built to Be Boss, highlighting the engine's cutting-edge design and uncompromising durability. Testimonials from real users, showing how the truck exceeded their expectations in both performance and reliability, flooded social media. The campaign's success was undeniable. Chevrolet's online engagement tripled, and customer satisfaction scores reached record highs. Ford's response was scattered. In a bid to counter the hype, they released a series of videos showcasing their own engine's rugged capabilities. Yet these videos felt hastily produced and lacked the cohesive storytelling that made Chevrolet's campaign so successful. Ford seemed desperate to remind the public of its heritage, but the message was overshadowed by the excitement surrounding Chevrolet's breakthrough. Economic and political ramifications. President Trump's decision to impose tariffs on automotive components sparked intense debate in Washington. While some industry leaders praised the move as a push for American manufacturing, critics warned that companies like Ford, heavily reliant on imported parts, would suffer the most. As Chevrolet's sales surged, Trump lauded the brand for embodying American innovation and resilience. Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada saw the situation differently. As American automakers struggled with tariff-induced costs, Canadian manufacturers, receiving subsidies for electric and hybrid vehicles, became more competitive. Carney used this opportunity to pitch Canada as an ideal manufacturing hub, emphasizing the stability and government support for green technologies. The fallout was immediate. Automakers that relied on Canadian plants for production saw an uptick in investor interest. Companies like Honda and Toyota, with their manufacturing bases in Ontario, prepared to capitalize on Ford's troubles. Meanwhile, Chevrolet quietly continued its aggressive marketing campaign, leveraging the patriotic sentiment without directly addressing the tariff debate. Ford's desperation, a risky proposal. Ford executives, backed into a corner, proposed an unorthodox solution, partnering with an electric vehicle startup to produce hybrid Rangers within the next 12 months. The proposal was risky, not just because of the ambitious timeline, but because Ford had little experience with large-scale hybrid manufacturing. Critics within the company warned that rushing development could lead to long-term brand damage if the product failed. Nevertheless, the pressure to act outweighed the caution. Ford's board approved an emergency budget to fast-track the hybrid program, despite warnings from engineers that the model might not meet durability standards. Investors remained skeptical, but Ford had no choice. Doing nothing would mean ceding the midsize market to Chevrolet indefinitely. As Chevrolet cemented its newfound dominance, Ford's gamble on hybrid technology remained uncertain. The competition between the two brands was no longer just about trucks. It was about the future of American automotive innovation. Would Ford's hybrid bet pay off? Or would Chevrolet's turbocharged revolution become the new industry standard? The battle for consumer loyalty was far from over, and both companies knew that the next move could either secure or shatter their legacy. Chevrolet's unexpected victory. Dealerships reported unprecedented interest, with some models selling out within weeks. Social media buzz kept building, with users posting videos of their new Colorado trucks hauling boats, climbing rocky terrain, and performing flawlessly on long-distance road trips. The hashtag number sign Chevy Turbo Takeover trended nationwide. Chevrolet's decision to focus on performance rather than luxury also paid off. Consumers felt the truck was designed for real-world utility, not just showroom appeal. This was where Ford had failed. The Ranger's marketing emphasized comfort and tech features, while Chevrolet made torque, towing capacity, and ruggedness the centerpieces of its campaign. The media frenzy. The media couldn't get enough of the story. Major automotive publications ran features dissecting Chevrolet's success. Experts praised the engine's dual-volute turbo design, explaining how it delivered consistent power without the traditional lag. Talk shows debated whether Chevrolet had permanently eclipsed Ford in the midsize segment. The story took a dramatic turn when Ford's CEO, overwhelmed by the pressure, was seen tearing up during a live press conference. Reporters pressed him on how Ford planned to counter Chevrolet's dominance, and the usually stoic executive, visibly shaken, struggled to compose himself. The image of a powerful CEO breaking down became an instant meme, symbolizing Ford's fall from grace. Critics pointed out that Ford's complacency had led to this situation. Instead of innovating, they had relied on brand loyalty and legacy. Chevrolet, on the other hand, had actively sought to meet the evolving demands of a new generation of truck owners, those who wanted efficiency without sacrificing power. Ford's PR nightmare. Damage control was immediate. Ford's communications team released a statement explaining that the CEO's emotional response was due to his passion for the brand and commitment to innovation. Yet the internet was unforgiving. Memes continued to circulate, portraying the CEO as out of touch and incapable of leading the company through a crisis. Behind the scenes, the board of directors debated whether a leadership change was necessary. Some argued that the CEO's vulnerability made him more relatable, while others worried it signaled weakness at a time when Ford needed strong leadership. The decision was made to retain him, but his public appearances were drastically reduced. In contrast, Chevrolet's leadership remained steadfast. The company's president released a brief, confident statement, thanking customers for their overwhelming support. The message was clear: Chevrolet was on top and they planned to stay there. Ford's stock took a hit, dropping nearly 10% within a week. Investors worried that Ford's inability to match Chevrolet's innovation would lead to long-term losses. In contrast, Chevrolet's parent company, General Motors, saw a surge in shares, reflecting consumer confidence in their strategic direction. Automotive blogs published speculative pieces on whether Ford's hybrid Ranger could realistically compete. Some suggested that even if Ford managed to rush the hybrid to market, it wouldn't matter. Consumers had already shifted their perception. Chevrolet was now the leader in performance trucks. To regain ground, Ford needed more than just a product. They needed to restore consumer trust. They announced a series of community events where engineers would discuss upcoming models directly with potential buyers. While the effort was commendable, it felt reactive rather than proactive. Chevrolet doubles down. Chevrolet did not rest on its laurels. Rather than coast on their recent success, they announced a new initiative: special customization packages for the Colorado, allowing buyers to tailor their trucks for towing, off-roading, or urban commuting. The packages included upgrades like reinforced suspensions, skid plates, and enhanced towing hitches. The move was strategic. By giving consumers more control over their vehicle's configuration, Chevrolet reinforced the idea that the Colorado was not just a one-size-fits-all truck. It was adaptable, just like the modern consumer. Ford's traditional approach of offering set trims now appeared outdated. Even as Ford rushed to finalize the hybrid Ranger, Chevrolet was expanding the conversation. They launched a campaign highlighting how the turbocharged engine not only performed but lasted. Footage of endurance testing, where the engine operated at peak power for hundreds of hours without failure, was released. The message was simple: Chevrolet didn't just build a powerful truck, they built a reliable one. Ford's desperate move. In a bid to steal back the spotlight, Ford made a bold announcement. They would introduce an all-electric Ranger within 18 months, a move intended to demonstrate their commitment to innovation. The announcement, however, raised more questions than answers. Skeptics pointed out that Ford's current electric projects were already behind schedule. How could they possibly deliver a competitive electric truck so soon? Consumers were divided. While some were excited about the idea of an electric Ranger, many remained skeptical. Ford's previous delays in delivering electric models made the promise feel hollow. In contrast, Chevrolet continued to position the Colorado as a truck that was ready now, not in a distant, uncertain future. Even President Trump weighed in, expressing support for American innovation, but warning against making promises that couldn't be kept. His statement, while diplomatically neutral, hinted that Ford might be setting itself up for failure. The initial wave of sympathy for Ford's CEO faded quickly, replaced by growing frustration among brand loyalists. Longtime Ford owners questioned whether the company still had the innovative spirit that had once defined them. In truck enthusiast circles, discussions revolved around Chevrolet's ability to blend power with efficiency, a combination that Ford seemed to have overlooked. The buzz surrounding the electric Ranger announcement quickly cooled. Consumers wanted something tangible, and Chevrolet was delivering that. Dealerships reported that even former Ford customers were inquiring about the new Colorado, drawn by the consistent performance and rugged appeal. With Ford's reputation teetering and Chevrolet solidifying its lead, the automotive landscape was undergoing a radical shift. The battle wasn't just about trucks anymore. It was about brand identity, consumer trust, and the willingness to innovate in a rapidly changing market. Could Ford bounce back with an electric revolution, or was Chevrolet's turbocharged strategy the beginning of a new era? The final moves would determine not just the fate of these iconic brands, but the future of American truck culture itself. Ford's internal struggle. As Ford scrambled to reclaim its footing, the company faced a stark reality. Redefining the Ranger wasn't just a marketing challenge, it was an existential one. Meetings at Ford's headquarters became increasingly tense, with executives divided on the best path forward. Should they double down on hybrid technology, push for an all-electric model, or find a way to match Chevrolet's turbocharged prowess? The CEO, still reeling from the media fallout, authorized an emergency task force to investigate Chevrolet's strategy in depth. Engineers tore down a Colorado engine, attempting to decipher how Chevrolet had achieved such a seamless balance of torque and efficiency. They found what they expected: precision engineering that allowed the turbo to spool up faster while maintaining durability under stress. What frustrated Ford's team most was how they had underestimated the consumer desire for immediate power. While they focused on gradual hybrid integration, Chevrolet had harnessed raw performance to win hearts and minds. One engineer summed it up during a late-night meeting. "We thought we were moving forward. Turns out they just moved faster." The hybrid gamble. The turmoil at Ford's headquarters was palpable. Despite the storm brewing around them, the leadership remained steadfast. Backing out now would only make matters worse. Ford's executives doubled down on their ambitious plan, the hybrid Ranger. The concept was straightforward yet daring, pairing a 4-cylinder turbo engine with a battery to enhance both power and efficiency. It was a calculated risk, leveraging Ford's existing electric expertise. But the timeline was unforgiving. Production teams voiced serious concerns about maintaining quality control, and the pressure mounted. Adding to the challenge, Ford's marketing strategists faced a dilemma. For decades, Ford's loyal base had cherished rugged simplicity. Now the team had to wonder, would these same customers embrace hybrid technology, especially when Chevrolet's traditional turbo power had already stolen the spotlight? Nevertheless, Ford remained resolute. They committed to a launch within 14 months, hoping the hybrid Ranger would not just redeem their reputation, but reassert their innovation in the midsize truck segment. To build anticipation, Ford launched a series of teaser campaigns, hinting at the hybrid's performance advantages. Their goal was clear: shift the narrative from Chevrolet's innovation to Ford's evolution. The hybrid couldn't just be powerful. It had to be practical, reliable, and unmistakably Ford. However, even as Ford moved forward with its hybrid plans, Chevrolet wasn't sitting idle. The rival automaker quickly released data showing how its turbocharged Colorado consistently outperformed competitors in torque delivery and reliability. The message was clear. The future might be electric, but the present belonged to turbo. This strategic countermove left Ford's executives scrambling to maintain control of the narrative. Ford knew they couldn't afford to falter. Marketing teams crafted a narrative emphasizing the hybrid Ranger's balance between power and efficiency. They framed it as a game changer, an essential evolution rather than a departure from Ford's legacy. Still, doubts lingered. Could a hybrid truly capture the hearts of those who had always valued brute strength over innovative powertrains? The pressure intensified as Chevrolet continued to capitalize on the uncertainty surrounding Ford's hybrid experiment. Chevrolet's cool-headed strategy, opting to fine-tune rather than overhaul their turbo engine, was a stark contrast to Ford's ambitious gamble. As both companies prepared for the hybrid's debut, the battle lines were drawn. Would Ford's hybrid concept revolutionize the segment? Or would Chevrolet's calculated approach prove more enduring? Public perception and political pressure. Ford's hybrid announcement sparked heated debates at truck meets nationwide. Chevy fans touted the Colorado's turbocharged power and reliability, while Ford enthusiasts insisted that hybrids were the future. Yet, even some die-hard Ford owners admitted that Chevrolet had pulled off something remarkable. Surveys confirmed the shift. 6 months after Chevrolet's turbocharged launch, 70% of mid-size truck buyers favored the Colorado over the Ranger. Even more surprising, nearly half of those respondents were former Ford loyalists. Ford dealerships reported dwindling traffic, while Chevy showrooms stayed busy, extending hours to meet demand. Sensing the economic impact, President Trump addressed the issue, urging Ford to step up and innovate rather than rely on past achievements. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney echoed the sentiment, noting Ford's slow adaptation compared to Chevrolet's proactive approach. Realizing they needed a new strategy, Ford's marketing team launched a nostalgic campaign highlighting the Ranger's rugged past, but critics saw it as reactionary. Meanwhile, Chevrolet strengthened its lead with the Switch for Power campaign, offering incentives to Ford owners while expanding customization options. When the hybrid Ranger finally launched, its lukewarm reception and early reliability issues cemented public skepticism. Meanwhile, the Colorado, now a cultural icon, remained the clear favorite. Ford knew it was time for a more radical strategy, quietly planning a fully electric truck to reclaim the narrative. But what do you think of Chevy's game-changing engine? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching.